The moon was full the night Mavet was rejected. It hung high above the Silver Creek gathering grounds, pale and cold, watching as hundreds of wolves stood shoulder to shoulder beneath its light. Lanterns flickered between the trees, casting long shadows over the packed earth. The air smelled of pine, smoke, and anticipation. This was meant to be a celebration. Instead, it became an execution. Mavet stood at the center of the clearing, her hands clenched at her sides, heart hammering so loudly she was certain everyone could hear it. Across from her stood Osrich, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in the dark red mantle of a rising alpha. Her mate. At least, he had been. Osrich lifted his chin, his voice carrying easily through the clearing. I, Osrich of Silver Creek, he said, without hesitation, reject Maeve as my mate. The words struck her like a blade between the ribs. For a heartbeat, the world went silent. Then the whispers began. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some wolves turned away, unable to watch. Others leaned closer, hunger glittering in their eyes. Rejection was rare. Public rejection, even rarer. Maeve's wolf screamed inside her, a soundless howl of pain that tore through her chest. Her knees nearly buckled, but she locked them in place. She would not fall. Not here. Not for him. Osrich continued, his voice sharp and merciless. She is weak. A healer who hides behind herbs and salves. I need strength at my side. A Luna worthy of standing beside an alpha, not an omega, who smells of crushed leaves and fear. A few laughs broke out. Not loud, not kind. Mavet lifted her eyes to his face, searching desperately for regret, for doubt, for anything that might suggest this was a mistake. She found nothing. Her chest burned, her throat closed. The bond between them snapped violently, pain ripping through her veins like fire. She bowed her head once, not in submission, in finality. That night, while the pack celebrated their alpha's freedom, Mavet packed her mother's satchel, lit a cracked lantern, and walked away from everything she had ever known. The moon did not follow her. Before we begin, if you love dark Lycan kings, forbidden mates, and stories that make your heart ache, like this video, subscribe, and step into the pack, because these stories only get deeper from here. 2 years later, Mavet lived where wolves rarely chose to go. Her cabin sat at the very edge of Silver Creek territory, where the forest thickened and the river cut sharp and cold through stone. Pines crowded close, their branches creaking in the wind like old bones. The cabin itself was small and weathered, its wooden walls scarred by age. and claw marks long since faded. It wasn't much, but it was hers, built by her mother's hands, plank by plank, back when hope still lived in their blood. Each morning, Maeve rose before the sun. She lit the hearth, boiled water, and ground herbs with steady, practiced movements. Dried leaves hung from the rafters. Jars lined the shelves. Bark, roots, petals, powders. Healing was rhythm, and rhythm kept the past at bay. Villagers came quietly, usually at dawn or dusk, when the pack patrols were thin. They knocked softly. They never asked questions. Maeve treated burns, fevers, infected wounds. She stitched skin torn by claws and blades alike. Payment came in coin, bread, meat, sometimes nothing at all. She never complained. The forest did not judge her for being mateless. Still, some nights, when the wind carried distant howls, her chest ached with a pain she pretended not to feel. The knock came just after sunset. "Maeve!" a woman cried, pounding on the cabin door. "Please, my child." Maeve was on her feet instantly. She grabbed her satchel, pulling on her cloak as she opened the door. Snow swirled in on the wind, clinging to the woman's hair and lashes. "He's burning up," the woman sobbed. "He won't wake." Maeve nodded once. No questions. No hesitation. She followed the woman through knee-deep snow to a small hut on the edge of the village. The child lay curled beneath blankets, skin flushed, breath shallow. Maeve worked quickly. She crushed fever root, brewed willow bark tea, pressed cool cloths to his skin. She murmured softly, her voice steady, even as fear clawed at her ribs. Hours passed. At last, the child's breathing slowed. His skin cooled. The fever broke just before dawn. Relief flooded Maeve's limbs, leaving her weak but grateful. She declined the woman's tears and thanks, pulling her cloak tight as she stepped back into the snow alone. That was when she smelled blood. The forest was wrong. Branches lay shattered. Snow was churned and stained dark red. The air vibrated with the lingering echo of violence. Maeve's steps slowed. Then she saw him. A massive white wolf lay near the tree line, half buried beneath snow and shadow. His fur was matted with blood, his flank torn open by deep, deliberate wounds. His size alone stole the breath from her lungs, larger than any alpha she had ever seen. Fear rooted her in place. Even wounded, this wolf could kill her. His chest rose and fell shallowly. One golden eye cracked open. It fixed on her. Maeve swallowed hard, forcing herself to breathe. "I won't hurt you," she whispered, though her hands trembled. Every instinct screamed at her to run. Instead, she stepped forward, dragging him to the cabin, nearly broke her. His weight was impossible. Her muscles screamed. Blood soaked her clothes. More than once, she nearly collapsed beneath him, but she kept going. Inside the cabin, she worked through the night. She cleaned wounds torn by silver blades. She stitched flesh that refused to knit. She bound injuries that should have killed him hours ago. Nothing worked. Her hands shook as she stared down at him, breath hitching. Her mother's voice echoed in memory. "The gift will save them," she had warned softly. "But it will take from you." Maeve pressed her palm to the wolf's chest. "I won't let you die," she whispered. Light bloomed beneath her hand. Pain followed. Her life force poured into him like fire ripping through her veins. The room spun. Her vision dimmed. The wolf surged awake. Teeth pierced her shoulder. Silver fire exploded through her skin. A mark burned itself into her flesh, intricate, radiant. A crown. Maeve woke to silence. The cabin was empty. The wolf was gone. A small pouch of gold lay on the table. Her shoulder burned. She stumbled to the mirror and froze. The mark shimmered faintly against her skin's silver lines, forming a crown she instinctively knew was not meant for her. Yet, that night, she dreamed of war, of a man kneeling before a shattered throne, of golden eyes filled with pain. Weeks later, a traveling merchant spoke the name that changed everything. "Rain," he said casually. "The Alpha King, White Wolf, fighting a civil war." Maeve nearly dropped her basket. She had saved the Alpha King, and he had marked her. Rain felt her. She felt him. His exhaustion, his rage, his loneliness, and his longing. Maeve told herself it meant nothing. Kings did not claim rejected omegas, but the mark pulsed, and the world was already shifting. The mark never slept. Some nights it burned like a living thing beneath Maeve's skin, pulsing in time with a heartbeat that was not her own. Other nights, it hummed softly, a quiet awareness that made it impossible to forget she was no longer alone. She learned Rain's moods without meaning to. When he was angry, her chest felt tight, breath shallow, as if the world itself braced for violence. When he was wounded, exhaustion settled into her bones, so deeply she could barely rise from bed. And when he was lonely, Maeve pressed a hand to her ribs, swallowing hard. Those nights were the worst. She dreamed of battlefields, drenched in blood, of banners burning, of a crown cracked down the middle. She dreamed of a man standing alone beneath storm-dark skies, golden eyes searching the horizon as if he could feel her just as clearly. She never answered him. She couldn't. A rejected Omega had no place in a king's war. The invitation arrived with the first frost of autumn, a thin parchment, sealed with Silver Creek's insignia, delivered by a nervous young runner who refused to meet her eyes. Harvest Moon Festival, it read. All are welcome. Maeve stared at the words for a long time. She hadn't stepped onto Packlands since the night she left. She had avoided the patrol routes, the markets, the festivals, anything that smelled too strongly of memory. But she needed rare herbs. Winter was coming, and her stores were running low. The Harvest Moon Festival would draw traders from distant territories, carrying plants she could not find anywhere else. She told herself that was the only reason she went. The mark pulsed faintly, as if amused. Silver Creek had not changed. Lanterns hung from branches, glowing gold and amber as dusk settled. Music drifted through the clearing, laughter rising and falling like a tide. Fires crackled, sending sparks into the night air. Maeve moved carefully, keeping her head down, her cloak pulled tight. Eyes followed her. Whispers spread. She came back? That's Osrich's rejected mate, isn't it? Why would she show her face here? Her shoulders stiffened, but she kept walking, until laughter cut through the noise. Oh? Look who crawled out of the woods! Maeve stopped. Osrich stepped into her path, flanked by two beaters. He looked larger than she remembered, broader, stronger, wearing fine leathers and confidence like a second skin. His eyes dragged over her slowly, cruel amusement curling his mouth. Still mateless? He asked loudly. The words echoed. Silence fell. Maeve felt every gaze turn toward her. She lifted her chin, heart pounding. I'm here for supplies, she said evenly. Nothing more. Osrich left. Supplies, he repeated, still pretending you're useful. A few wolves snickered. You could have had everything, he continued, voice dripping with satisfaction. A place, protection, but you chose exile. I chose dignity, Maeve said quietly. That made him angry. His smile sharpened. You're nothing without a mate. Just an Omega playing healer. The mark flared. Pain lanced through her shoulder. The ground trembled beneath their feet. A pressure swept through the clearing vast. Crushing. Undeniable. Lanterns flickered. Fires bent low. Every wolf froze. A white wolf emerged from the trees. Massive. Silent. His fur gleamed like moonlight on snow, eyes burning gold as he stepped into the clearing. Power rolled off him in waves, forcing wolves to bow their heads instinctively. Gasps broke the silence. "Alpha King," someone whispered. Rain shifted. The change was fluid and terrifyingly beautiful. In a heartbeat, the wolf became a man, tall, broad, scarred, wearing armor etched with symbols older than any pack present. His gaze locked onto Maeve. The world narrowed. Rain crossed the clearing slowly. Osrich stepped back without realizing he was moving. Rain stopped in front of Maeve. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then the Alpha King of all territories went to one knee. Gasps erupted. Rain bowed his head, voice low and steady. "My queen," he said. The mark on Maeve's shoulder ignited, blazing silver beneath her skin. "I have searched for you," Rain continued. "I feared you were lost to me." Maeve's breath caught. "I am no one's queen," she whispered. Rain looked up, golden eyes fierce and reverent. "You are the woman who saved my life," he said. "The one who carries my mark. The only one I will ever kneel for." Osrich's face drained of color. Rain rose slowly, his presence pressing down on the pack like a storm. "You rejected her," he said, turning his gaze to Osrich. "Publicly, cruelly." Osrich swallowed. "She's an Omega. She's a healer of ancient blood," Rain snapped. "And she carries power you could never command." Rain turned back to Maeve, his voice softening. "I will not force you," he said. "But know this, the bond exists, whether you claim it or not." Maeve looked around the clearing, at the wolves who once cast her out, at the Alpha who mocked her, at the king kneeling for her without demand. Her heart thundered, and for the first time, she did not bow. Silence gripped the harvest moon clearing. No one moved. No one breathed. The Alpha King stood before them, his presence pressing against every wolf's instincts like an unyielding tide. Elders who had not bowed to anyone in decades lowered their heads without realizing it. Rain turned slowly, surveying the pack. "This gathering was called under false peace," he said, voice calm but edged with iron. "You celebrated while rot festered in your leadership." The elders stiffened. Osrich tried to speak. "My king, Rain's gaze snapped to him. "You will be silent." The command was absolute. Rain gestured toward Maeve. This woman was rejected and cast out for weakness. Murmurs rippled. "She survived alone. She healed your children. She saved me." Rain's voice rose, thunder rolling through it, "and not one of you spoke in her defense." Maeve felt the weight of it settle into her bones. Shame hung thick in the air. The eldest elder stepped forward, hands trembling. What judgment do you seek, Alpha King? Rain's eyes never left Osric. Truth, he said, and consequence. Osric backed away a step. You cannot punish me for rejecting a mate, he said, desperation creeping into his voice. It is my right. You did not reject her in private, Rain interrupted. You humiliated her. You weakened the pack by casting out a healer of rare blood. Rain took one step forward. Strip him! Gasps erupted. Before Osric could react, beaters moved, not his, but Rain's guards. Emerging silently from the perimeter, Osric's mantle was torn from his shoulders. His alpha insignia ripped away. No! Osric shouted. You can't! Rain's voice cut through him. You are no alpha. Osric dropped to his knees, shaking. You will live, Rain said coldly. You will remember, and every day you will know what you lost. Rain turned away. Osric's sob broke something in the crowd, but Maeve felt no triumph. Only closure. The clearing slowly emptied. Wolves retreating in stunned silence. Maeve remained. Rain approached her carefully now, as if afraid she might vanish if he moved too fast. I will not bind you, he said quietly. The mark connects us, but the choice remains yours. Maeve folded her arms over her chest. You don't understand, she said. The gift I used to save you. It killed my mother. Rain stilled. She warned me, Maeve continued. Every time I use it, it takes something from me. Years. Strength. Life. Rain's jaw tightened. And yet you used it anyway. She met his gaze. Because you were dying. Rain lowered his head, reverence flooding his expression. You are stronger than any queen born to a throne, he said. Maeve looked away. I don't want a throne, she whispered. I want peace. Rain nodded slowly. Then let me earn your trust, he said. Not as the king, but as the wolf you saved. That night, the dreams changed. Maeve stood on a battlefield beneath a blood-red moon. Wolves clashed around her, steel and claws tearing into flesh. She felt Rain's pain as if it were her own exhaustion. Fury, determination forged in fire. She saw the enemy banners. A rival alpha claiming divine right. A lie built on blood. Maeve woke gasping. The mark burning hot. Rain was in danger, and through the bond, she knew something else. He was losing. The next morning, the The mark fled brighter than ever before. Maeve collapsed to her knees, breath ripping from her lungs. Images flooded her mind, not memories, but possibilities. Paths branching like roots through earth. Outcomes shaped by choice. Her mother's voice whispered through the pain. The gift is not only for healing flesh. Maeve understood. She could heal armies, or break herself trying. Rain arrived at her cabin at dusk. He stood in the doorway, armor scarred, eyes weary. "I won't ask you to come," he said, "but the war will reach these lands soon." Maeve looked at the forest, at the cabin her mother built, at the satchel that held generations of knowledge. "I won't kneel to a crown," she said. Rain nodded. "I wouldn't want you to." She stepped forward. "But I will stand beside you," Maeve said. "On my terms." A slow smile broke across Rain's face, not triumphant, but relieved. "Then stand with me," he said softly. As they left the cabin together, the mark shimmered, no longer burning, but steady, balanced. For the first time, Maeve felt it not as a chain, but as a promise. War did not announce itself with trumpets. It arrived on the wind. Maeve felt it before the sun rose, a tightening in her chest, a pulse beneath her skin that throbbed with urgency. The mark burned, sharp and insistent, pulling her attention eastward. Rain was already awake. He stood outside the cabin, staring into the forest, armor half fastened, jaw set in grim certainty. "They've crossed the river," he said quietly. "My enemies won't stop until the crown is theirs, or I'm dead." Maeve stepped beside him. "Then we end it," she said. Rain turned, searching her face. "What you plan to do will cost you." Maeve met his gaze without flinching. "So did surviving," she replied. The journey to the battlefield took 3 days. They traveled through forests thick with mist, over mountains crowned with snow, past villages that shuttered their windows and barred their doors as the king's procession passed. Rain's army marched behind them, wolves from every territory loyal to the crown, warriors hardened by loss, healers carrying knowledge passed down through bloodlines, scouts who read the wind like text. Maeve walked among them, not at Rain's side, but with the healers. She learned their names, their fears, their stories. A young woman named Isla had lost her mate to the rival Alpha's cruelty. An elder named Kale carried scars from battles fought before Maeve was born. They did not ask about the mark on her shoulder. They simply accepted her, and for the first time since her rejection, Maeve felt she belonged somewhere. His name was Darius. Once, he had been Rain's second, a trusted commander, a brother in all but blood. Then ambition turned to poison. Darius believed the crown belonged to the strongest, not the wisest. He claimed Rain had grown weak, distracted by mercy when the world demanded steel. He gathered wolves who believed the same, and when Rain refused to execute prisoners taken in border skirmishes, Darius declared him unfit to rule. The civil war began the next night. Now, as Marve stood on the ridge, overlooking the valley where armies gathered, she saw Darius for the first time. He was massive, larger even than Rain in wolf form. His fur black as midnight, eyes burning with cold ambition. He wants more than the crown, Rain said quietly, standing beside her. Marve glanced at him. What does he want? Rain's jaw tightened. To break the old laws, he said. To rule without mercy. To make strength the only truth that matters. Marve looked back at Darius. Then we don't just fight for the crown, she said. We fight for what it means. That night, the camp was quiet. Fires burned low. Wolves spoke in hushed tones, sharpening weapons, checking armor, writing letters they hoped would never be sent. Marve sat outside her tent, grinding herbs by lamplight. Rain found her there. He sat without asking, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. For a long time, neither spoke. I was 12 when I took the crown, Rain said finally. Maeve looked up. My father was killed in an ambush, Rain continued, staring into the darkness. My mother died bringing me into the world. I had no siblings, no one to share the weight. His voice was quiet, raw. I learned to be strong because I had no choice, he said. But strength became loneliness, and loneliness became emptiness. Maeve set down her pestle. Then you were wounded, she said softly. Rain nodded. I thought I was dying, he said, and I felt relief. Maeve's chest tightened. Rain turned to her, golden eyes reflecting the firelight. Then you saved me, he said, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. What? Marve whispered. Hope. The mark pulsed between them, warm and steady. Rain reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His hand cupped her face gently, thumb brushing her cheek. Whatever happens tomorrow, Rain said, I need you to know you are not what they said you were. You never were. Marve closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. Neither are you, she whispered. When she opened her eyes, Rain was smiling soft, unguarded, real. May I kiss you? He asked. Maeve's breath caught. She nodded. Rain leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to change her mind. She didn't. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, as if they were both afraid of breaking something fragile. Then the mark flared. Heat bloomed between them, the bond singing with recognition, with rightness. Rain deepened the kiss, pulling her closer, and Marve let herself fall into it, into him, into the warmth she had convinced herself she would never feel again. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Rain rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me tonight," he whispered. Not a command, a plea. Maeve nodded. Always. The battlefield lay beneath a sky stained red. The blood moon rose slowly, casting everything in crimson light. Wolves, banners, broken earth. The air reeked of iron and smoke. Howls split the night as packs collided, claw and steel tearing through flesh. Rain shifted mid-stride, white fur exploding outward as he charged into the fray, a living force of destruction. Darius met him head-on. The two titans clashed with a sound like thunder. Marve stayed behind the front line, heart pounding. This was not a healer's place. But she was no longer only a healer. She closed her eyes and reached inward. Power surged through Marve like wildfire. Not reckless, focused. She planted her feet, pressing her palm to the earth as ancient words burned from her lungs. Words older than packs, older than crowns. Silver light erupted outward. Wounded wolves gasped as torn flesh knit together. Broken bones realigned. Exhaustion melted away. But the gift did not stop there. Enemies faltered. Fear bloomed in their ranks, choking courage at its root. Lies unraveled. False bonds snapped. Maeve screamed as pain tore through her chest. Years drained from her veins. Her knees buckled. Rain felt it instantly. He turned, golden eyes wide with horror. Maeve! Rain tore through the battlefield toward her, shifting mid-run, armor reforming around his human form as he caught her before she hit the ground. "Marve," he begged, pressing his forehead to hers. "Stop, please." She smiled weakly. "This ends tonight," she whispered. "No more running." The mark flared brighter than ever before. Then it changed. The silver crown split. Not breaking. Opening. Light poured from both of them, weaving together, not draining, not consuming, balancing. Rain gasped as the bond shifted. No longer feeding on her life, but sharing strength equally. The gift stabilized. Maeve's breathing steadied. Color returned to her cheeks. Rain held her tighter, relief flooding through him. Together, he whispered fiercely. Together, Mavet agreed. They rose as one. The rival Alpha fell to his knees. Power stripped from him like a cloak torn away. Rain stood before him, bloodied, but unbroken. Mavet stood beside him, silver light still shimmering around her hands. You sought a crown without understanding its weight, Rain said coldly. This is the cost, Darius snarled, lunging forward one last time. Mavet raised her hand. Light burst from her palm, not to kill, but to reveal. Every lie Darius had told, every betrayal, every wolf he had sacrificed for his ambition, the truth laid bare for all to see. His remaining followers backed away in horror. Darius howled as the bond he had stolen shattered, leaving him nothing but flesh and regret. Rain's blade fell swift and final. Silence descended over the battlefield. The war was over. Dawn broke over the battlefield, painting the world in gold and amber. Wolves gathered, watching as Rain turned to Mavet. Slowly, deliberately, he went to one knee, not in command, in devotion. I offer you the crown, Rain said, voice steady. Not as my ruler, but as my equal. Mavet looked around, at wolves healed by her hands, at a kingdom no longer built on fear. She lifted Rain to his feet. I will not rule from a throne, she said. I will walk among them. Rain smiled. Then I will walk beside you. Cheers erupted. Not for a king and his subject, for partners, equals, for hope reborn. The months that followed were not easy. Villages needed rebuilding. Alliances needed mending. Wounds, both physical and those carved into hearts, needed time to heal. Maeve travelled with Rain, but she did not stay in the capital. She returned to her cabin, expanded it, and turned it into a healing sanctuary. Wolves came from every territory seeking treatment, seeking training, seeking hope. Rain visited as often as his duties allowed, and when he came, he did not arrive as a king, demanding hospitality. He came as a man grateful to be home. 1 year after the battle, beneath a full moon that shone bright and clear, Rain and Maeve stood together in the clearing where she had once been rejected. The pack gathered not to witness a rejection, but a claiming. Rain took Mavet's hands, his voice carrying strong and true. I claim you, Maeve of the ancient bloodline, as my mate, my equal, my queen. Maeve smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. I claim you, Rain, Alpha King, as my mate, my partner, my home. The bond fled brilliant silver, sealing what had always been true. The moon shone down, no longer cold and distant. This time, it smiled. Years passed. The cabin became a school. Healers trained under Maeve's guidance, learning not just herbs and stitches, but the ancient gift passed down through her bloodline. Rain reformed the kingdom's laws not through strength alone, but through wisdom, mercy, and justice, balanced in equal measure. Children ran freely through forests, no longer divided by fear. Packs that had warred for generations learned to coexist. And though challenges remained, they always would. The foundation was strong, built not on power, but on partnership. One evening, as the sun set, in brilliant shades of orange and gold, Maeve stood in her garden, tending to the medicinal plants that grew in careful rows. A young she-wolf approached hesitantly. "Healer Maeve?" she asked quietly. Maeve looked up, smiling. "Yes? The girl's voice trembled. "I was rejected by my mate. He said I was too weak, that I would never be enough." Maeve's expression softened with understanding. She set down her tools and knelt before the girl, taking her hands. "Listen to me," Maeve said gently. "What he said is not truth. It is fear. Fear that you are stronger than he will ever be." The girl's eyes widened. "You are not weak," Maeve continued. "You are not broken, and you are certainly not less, because someone could not see your worth." Tears spilled down the girl's cheeks. "But what do I do now?" Maeve smiled. "You survive," she said. "You grow. You become the person you were always meant to be." She squeezed the girl's hands. "And one day, when you stand in your power, you will understand rejection was not the end. It was the beginning." The girl nodded, hope flickering in her eyes. As she left, Rain emerged from the tree line. Having overheard, he wrapped his arms around Maeve from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "You give them hope," he murmured. Maeve leaned back against him. "Someone once gave it to me," she whispered. Rain turned her gently, looking into her eyes. "No one will ever ask you that question again," he said. Maeve raised an eyebrow. "What question?" Rain smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. 20 years later, the great hall of the Alpha King's palace was unlike any structure built before. Not a fortress designed to intimidate, but a sanctuary built to welcome. Walls of stone and timber rose high, but windows of coloured glass let light pour through in brilliant hues. Gardens grew within the courtyards, healing herbs planted alongside roses and wildflowers. It was a place of strength and gentleness balanced perfectly, a reflection of those who ruled it. Maeve stood on the balcony overlooking the kingdom, silver threading through her dark hair now, lines of laughter etched around her eyes. She had never worn a crown of gold, but the mark on her shoulder had never faded, and every wolf in every territory knew its meaning. Behind her, the council chamber buzzed with activity. Healers, warriors, scholars, farmers, voices from every walk of life, debating policy, sharing concerns, working together to shape the future. Rain had insisted on it. A king who rules alone, he had said, rules over ruins. Now, Rain emerged from the council chamber, his white hair catching the light. Age had touched him gently, lines of wisdom rather than weariness. He still moved like the warrior he had been, but his eyes held peace. They're arguing about crop rotation again, Rain said with amusement, coming to stand beside her. Maeve laughed. Good. Let them argue. That means they care. Rain wrapped an arm around her waist, pulling her close. We built something, didn't we? He murmured. Maeve looked out over the kingdom, at villages thriving, at forests protected, at wolves living without the shadow of endless war. We did, she said softly. A commotion rose from the courtyard below. Children, a whole pack of them, ranging from toddlers to teenagers, came running, laughing, chasing each other through the gardens. Among them, a young girl with silver eyes and dark hair paused, looking up at the balcony. Their daughter, Lyra, she waved enthusiastically. Maeve waved back, heart swelling with love. Lyra had inherited both her mother's healing gift and her father's strength. But more than that, she had inherited their values. Compassion balanced with courage, mercy tempered by justice. She would make a fine queen one day, or perhaps not a queen at all. Perhaps she would choose her own path, just as Maeve had, and that would be enough. Mother! Father! Lyra called up. The ambassadors from the northern packs have arrived. Rain nodded. We'll be right down. As Lyra ran off to greet their guests, Rain turned to Maeve. Do you ever regret it? He asked quietly. Choosing this life? Maeve looked at him, truly looked at him. At the man who had knelt for her when the world expected her to bow. At the king who had given up absolute power to share it equally. At her mate, her partner, her home. Never, she said. Rain smiled, leaning down to kiss her forehead. Good, he murmured. Because I have loved you every day since you saved my life. I think, Maeve said, eyes twinkling. You saved mine too. Hand in hand, they descended the stairs together. equal, balanced, whole. The night that came full circle. That evening, after the ambassadors had been welcomed and the feast had been shared, Maeve found herself walking through the forest alone. Not from loneliness, but from ritual. Once a year, on the anniversary of her rejection, she returned to the clearing where it had all begun. Not to mourn, to remember. The moon was full tonight, just as it had been then. Maeve stood in the center of the clearing, letting the memories wash over her. The pain, the humiliation, the shattering of everything she thought she knew. And then, the journey that followed. The strength she discovered. The love she never expected. Footsteps approached from behind. She didn't need to turn to know who it was. Rain stepped into the clearing, his presence warm and steady at her back. "You come here every year," he said gently. "I do," Maeve replied. "Why?" Maeve was quiet for a moment, then smiled. "To thank it," she said. Rain moved to stand beside her, surprised. "Thank it?" Maeve nodded. "That night, I thought my life was ending," she said. "But it was only beginning." She turned to face Rain, taking his hands. "If he hadn't rejected me, I would never have left," Maeve continued. "I would never have built my own life, never discovered my true strength, never saved you." Rain's eyes shimmered with emotion. "I would have spent my life trying to be enough for someone who would never see me," Maeve whispered. "Instead, I became more than I ever imagined." She squeezed his hands. "So yes," she said, "I thank that night, because it set me free." Rain pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "You were always enough," he murmured into her hair. He was just too blind to see it. Maeve laughed softly. "I know that now." They stood together in the clearing, beneath the full moon that had witnessed both her lowest moment and her greatest triumph. And as they held each other, the mark on Maeve's shoulder pulsed gently, not with pain, but with contentment. A reminder that she had never been mateless. She had simply been waiting for the right bond. One built on respect, not dominance. On partnership, not possession. On love freely given, not demanded. The final whisper. As they turned to leave the clearing, a figure emerged from the shadows. Maeve tensed, but Rain's hand on her shoulder kept her calm. It was Osrich. He looked nothing like the proud alpha who had rejected her all those years ago. His shoulders were stooped, his eyes hollow, his once fine leathers worn and patched. He had lived, as Rain had decreed, but he had never recovered. Osrich's voice cracked. I didn't mean to intrude. Maeve studied him for a long moment. She felt no anger, no bitterness, only pity. What do you want, Osrich? She asked quietly. He swallowed hard, unable to meet her eyes. I wanted to say... He paused, struggling with the words. I was wrong. About everything. Silence settled between them. I know it doesn't matter now, Osrich continued, voice breaking. I know I can't undo what I did, but I needed you to know you were never weak. I was. Maeve took a slow breath. She could feel Rain's protective energy beside her, ready to defend her if needed. But she didn't need defending. Not anymore. I forgive you, Maeve said simply. Osrich's head snapped up, shock written across his face. Not for you, Maeve continued. For me. So I can move forward without carrying that weight. Tears streamed down Osric's face. Thank you, he whispered. Maeve nodded once, then turned away. She and Rain walked back toward the palace together, leaving Osrich alone in the clearing. That was merciful, Rain said quietly. Maeve shrugged. Mercy doesn't mean forgetting, she said. It just means I won't let his choices define the rest of my life. Rain smiled, pride shining in his eyes. You are far wiser than any crown could make you. Maeve leaned into him as they walked. I learned from the best. The ending that was really a beginning. That night, as Maeve and Rain lay together beneath the stars, wrapped in each other's arms, Maeve felt a profound sense of peace. The journey had been long, painful at times, but every step had led her here, to this moment, to this love, to this life. Rain, she whispered into the darkness. If you could go back, she asked, and change anything, would you? Rain was quiet for a long moment. Then he tightened his arms around her. Not a single thing, he said, because every wound, every battle, every lonely night, it all led me to you. Maeve smiled against his chest. Me too. As sleep began to claim them, the mark on Maeve's shoulder glowed softly one last time. A crown that had chosen her, not because she was perfect, but because she was strong enough to survive, brave enough to heal, and wise enough to know that true power came not from ruling over others, but from standing beside them. Still mateless? Never again. The moon shone down, full and bright and proud, and Maeve, the rejected Omega who became a queen without a throne, finally, truly, completely, came home. The end. Narrator's note. This audiobook tells the story of Maeve, a healer rejected by her mate, who discovers her true strength, not through vengeance, but through compassion, courage, and the unexpected bond with an alpha king who teaches her that love is not about dominance, but partnership. It is a story about survival, healing, and the truth that rejection is sometimes the universe's way of redirecting you towards something far greater than you ever imagined. Thank you for listening. May you always know your worth, even when others cannot see it. And Kraid is Ruva. And Kraden from End of audiobook.